Hello, I am the leader of opposition rebuttal for today's debate topic. The United States federal government should pass the Medicare for All, expanding Medicare to cover every American's health expenses. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to mention a couple arguments that the LO did earlier. First one is going to be that funding for Medicare for All would cost $32 trillion, which is a ton of money. And to put that into perspective, the current United States federal budget is $4 trillion. So from 4 to 32 trillion is 8 times what the current federal budget is, which is just a lot. The second thing I'm going to remind you guys of is that the Medicare for All would no longer allow you to choose your healthcare system, which is it doesn't sound bad, but it's something that a lot of Americans take for granted. Like it's really nice being able to choose where you go. For several reasons. My parents used to have Sutter. Now we have Kaiser because it's cheaper, it's closer. We like the doctors there better. There's a lot of reasons, a lot of advantages to being able to choose your healthcare system. And then the last thing I'm going to remind you of is that there is a shortage of doctors. So the fact that the current Medicare system has a certain amount of people that doctors like cover, and then adding with Medicare for All, adding all of those people who don't have Medicare. All of those doctors are overworked, and it's just overall it's hard, it's too much, and it's a bad thing. All right, so earlier the affirmative mentioned that our current Medicare system doesn't cover the elderly people, and that elderly people go into debt because they can't afford the healthcare that they need. To me, this didn't make a whole lot of sense because Medicare currently, one of what it's most known for is that it is free healthcare to all Americans over the age of 65 who worked at least 10 years. So saying it doesn't cover Americans is not at all what our current Medicare system does, because it provides health care to the elderly for free, so which means they're getting their care that they need and no debt, so problem solved. Another thing I'm going to mention is the affirmative said the affirmative's plan is the funding, and this is where it gets interesting. So the funding is $32 trillion for Medicare for All. And they said that they're going to do it by taxing the high-income families. But what is exactly like a high-income family? Because first thought is it's got to be the wealthy class, right? But the affirmative claims that it is both the middle and the wealthy class, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense, because the current, according to CNBC.com, the middle and the wealthy class consist of 71% of the population, which Medicare for All doesn't make sense in that case, because the whole point of it is to benefit majority of Americans while only taxing a small portion of those who can afford to have a higher tax rate. So if both the middle and upper class 71% would have to pay an increase in taxes, that's hurting more Americans than it's helping, which doesn't make sense. And put it this way too: say you're only helping, say it's not the middle class doesn't have to pay that tax. Say it's only the upper class. So the upper class is 19% of the population, which sounds like a lot. That's a lot of people. They should be able to come up with $32 trillion. But if you actually do the math, so the United States has 330 million people. 19% of that is 62.7 million people. So 62.7 million, the ideal goal for Medicare for All is to have 62.7 million people fund Medicare for All, which is $32 trillion. So if you take $32 trillion and divide it by 62.7 million people, that is it's actually more than $500,000 per person per year, that is. And to put that into perspective, less than 1% of the United States population makes more than $500,000. So that's impossible. That's not going to happen. It makes absolutely no sense that Medicare for All should be, or that the taxes on the upper class would be able to afford would be able to fund 32 trillion. There is no way. And it sounds a lot nicer than it actually is. Say, hey, free healthcare, tax a small amount of people, we're all good. But if you look on a deeper level, it's a lot worse. So the last thing I'm gonna mention, which was also mentioned by the LO, was that Medicare for All decreases the amount of healthcare as well as the quality of healthcare. And I'm gonna give you a quick analogy. So I work at Chick-fil-A, and at Chick-fil-A, we have 2 expediters, so 2 different positions where you expedite. So when the food is brought out, the first expediter checks to make sure all the food is there. If it matches the receipt, that way, like, nobody's missing anything. And then they give them their napkins, gets their sauces, and hands it to the second expediter. From there, the second expediter takes a look at it, makes sure it matches the receipt, and also make sure that the first expediter puts the sauces and napkins and everything that they needed in the bag so that they can give it to the servers, who then take it out to the people. So this happens except for when we have a lunch rush. So lunch rushes, dinner rushes aren't as bad. But for lunch rushes, so say usually around noon, we don't have a second expediter because there are way too many cars. We'd have 40, 50, sometimes 60 cars at a time. And because there are so many, they'd be blocking freeways. They'd be blocking like parking lots and stuff like that. And we can't have that. So we don't have a second expediter. We have instead that expediter would be serving, taking the food out to the people to get the cars flowing. And the whole purpose of this, the point of what I'm trying to make is that with no second expediter, the quality of the restaurant, the quality of the food, and the accuracy is not there because there's too much. There's too much for the restaurant to handle with so many cars. And if you take that into Medicare terms, so if you have a whole lot, and I mentioned this earlier as well, but if you have a whole lot of people added to the Medicare system, that is way too much for doctors to take care of. 330 million people is way, it's overworking the doctors, which is a bad thing. It'll decrease quality of healthcare. It'll decrease the amount of healthcare because they're trying to get them through, because they're caring less about the actual relationship with the doctor-patient, making sure they're healthy, making sure everything's good. Instead, just getting them through because there's too many people in the waiting rooms. So that's what I have to say about that. Thank you.